At the outset, thank you Ecom Express and ET Now for having me over here. And I look forward to learning a lot from this brief interaction. I'm sure when I go back from here, I shall go back wiser than before. But having said that, when I'm asked to speak about the journey or maybe the transformation that has happened over the last 1 decade, or to be precise, about 10 years, which has been incidentally the tenure of Prime Minister Modi, I think the best way to appreciate a phenomena or whatever, particularly a changing phenomena, is to compare it with what it was earlier and what is it now. So if you look back to what it was like before 2014, you will recall there was so much of cynicism among the common Indian citizen. There's so much of disillusionment. Our youth felt that there was no future for them. They always look forward to be leaving the country at the first available opportunity. There was a sense of pessimism so much, and in fact, that evening on the 26th of May 2014, when the oath ceremony happened of the new Prime Minister Modi took over. It was around 6:30 in the evening, and it was the twilight time. And suddenly, when the shadows of evening were enlarging, you suddenly had so much of light around as if it was sunrise at sunset, because so many of television setups suddenly, started putting up that. And I think the most widely watched oath ceremony of any head of the state anywhere in the government in our recent memory. And I had actually written a small blog that this is the beginning of a journey from pessimism to optimism. Because suddenly there was a surge of hope that, okay, now maybe we are going to get over that shame and that loss of esteem which had happened because of the scam after scam appearing. And India got to be known as a country which could do better in scams than anything else. And therefore we thought suddenly it appeared there was an opportunity to get over that dubious reputation. And therefore if you compare it with that, I think if you go through all the earlier statements of Prime Minister Modi, you would have every reason to believe that we have actually, under Prime Minister Modi, walked the talk, because we live an evidence-based era, and therefore you can't be simply making a political rhetoric, but there is evidence enough to. And evidence based not on the parameters determined by me or by you or subjectively developed by India, if you even go by the global parameters. Now, she was talking in the context of economy. We were known to be fragile 5 and number 10. Today we are top 5. So I think some kind of a scientific analysis has to go into the background of this. How has it happened? It could have happened simply on the basis of rhetoric. And if you go by the global parameters, before we actually try to analyze how this transformation has happened and what has gone into this, let's have the evidence of it that we have from the objective observers, not emanating from this soil. For example, in Global Innovation Index, we were number 81. We ranked 81 in 2014. Today, we have jumped 41 places. We are ranked 40. So this is not I say, you say, this is one of the most respected parameters. So that means innovation has actually contributed hugely into this transformation which has happened over the last nearly 10 years. If you go by the startup index, we were just about 350 startups, or maximum 400 in 2014. Today we are close to 1.5 lakh, more than 100 unicorns. And in the global parameter, we are, and my next sentence would attract a bigger clap, because at the global index, we are ranked number 3. Now you just imagine in his first Independence Day address, or the second Independence Day address from the ramparts of Red Fort, when Prime Minister gave a call, stand up India, stand up India. Start up India, stand up India. I came across a number of people who were actually trying to understand what it was. He said, does it mean? So beginning from where we were, because we had not actually ventured into global betterment. And when we talk of making ourselves presence, make our presence in global excellence, we have to go by the global parameters. We have to live up to the global challenges. We have to follow the global strategies. And that's what has happened in the last 10 years. In space, we were, sometimes it's embarrassing to say, we were just one-digit startup. And this transformation happened because we were unnecessarily confining ourselves behind self-made shackles. And all this has contributed to economy, which I'll try to explain to you in the next 1 or 2 minutes, because otherwise I can go on and on, but I try to limit myself to 5-7 minutes. We had shut the doors of Sriharikota. We were working behind a veil of secrecy, I don't know for what, when the whole world watches us through Google. And therefore, we were constraining our resources, constraining our funds. We couldn't move on from where we were. After the new space reforms that came in, when it was put across to the Honorable Prime Minister, because the first time I went to Sriharikota and had the opportunity of watching a launch about 10, 11 years back, Dr. Radhakrishnan happened to be chairperson of ISRO and who also happened to be a friend. So in the middle of the night, he took me there and he said, Doc, I'll take you a spot where even my scientists are prohibited because such a risky zone. Tomorrow morning, we are going to have a launch. So I told him, I said, Radha, I have tried to make a principle for myself to learn one new thing every day. What I learned today is that to reach here, either one should be as eminent a scientist as you are, or a jagadu like me to enter here. But then what is the fun of it? So when it was put across to the Prime Minister, he let it open to the private sector. And within just 8 months, even the current year, from the 1st of April to the 31st of December 2023, we have had an investment of more than 1,000 crore. And so that means there was a huge amount of potential, huge amount of capacity, huge amount of commitment, which was waiting to happen. But what was lacking was possibly an enabling milieu, which is to be provided by the policy planners, by the political leadership. We didn't have a dearth of talent among our youth. We didn't have a dearth of talent among our innovators, among our potential startups, even our technologists and scientists. But we were not giving them an enabling milieu, in search of which then they finally decided to go abroad. And therefore, we also lost out to them. And when this happened, see the wonders. I was telling the other day, I said very seldom we realize that ISRO, I'm just citing an example, was born in the year 1969. That was the year it was established. And if you go back to the newspapers, archives, 1969 is the year which is known for the year when the Americans landed the first human being on the surface of the moon, called Neil Armstrong. And we were just newborn and singing rhymes, Chanda Mama Dur Ke. And today, we have managed to reach the south pole of the moon even before the Americans. So it's been such a quantum leap is possible, I think, and I sometimes very seriously think so and also share with others that it could be an important part of a case study, how this could happen. And why India today is being hailed across the world is because we have succeeded in proving ourselves on the basis of the parameters laid down by them. We can excel in their domains. For example, climate, green energy, zero emissions. India was never taken seriously because they thought these things were not meant for us, they were beyond us. Today we are laying down the targets. Net zero by 2070. It's our Prime Minister goes and lays down. In G20, it is we who are saying, let's come and form a global bio alliance, because we are telling the world, look here, the future is going to belong to bioeconomy. And India, for that matter, has an exclusive domain of bioeconomy. We have such a huge range of Himalayas, about 5-7 states lying in this lap of Himalayas. We never look back. So this rise in economy has happened, and if you talk of bioeconomy also, because these days, I mean, unless you talk in the terms of figures, you're not taken seriously, you're taken more as a political speaker. Our bioeconomy just stood at 10 billion US dollars in 2040. Today it is nearly 140 billion. In biotech startups, we had just about 50 startups, only 50 in 2014. Today we have more than 6,000. We have a huge lot of aroma mission called the Purple Revolution, which has shown the world the wonders of entrepreneurship through lavender cultivation. The agri startup. Agri was our domain, which we never looked into it. Again, born from Himalayas. So why this change has happened? A, because we have started exploring those areas which were lying there, which are an asset, but we never explored. The other one, of course, one, for example, being Himalayas, the other one being the coastal range. We have 7,500 long kilometer coast, possibly longest for any country in the world. I was telling the other day some of the friends from Australia, I said, you live in a place which is called an island, a continent and a country, but the ocean is not known as Australian Ocean. But my ocean is known as Indian Ocean. But there must be an economic reason for that, because my forefathers could see the huge amount of wealth lying inside. So for the first time, and that too, I think there's not been a single Independence Day address where Prime Minister has not flagged off one or the other important scientific mission. It was deep sea mission which he announced, not once but twice in his Independence Day address in 2023, 2024. And now we have embarked on that. The huge amount of minerals, metals, biodiversity, fishery lying in the bed of the sea. It's such a huge lot of seabed weight we have. We never actually explored into that. So A, we have started exploring into these hitherto unexplored or lesser explored areas. B, we have liberated ourselves from self-imposed shackles, as happened in the case of space I mentioned. And you'll be glad to know, I was telling somebody, I said, most of the governments and most of the politicians and even the civil servants after their retirement, they take pride in narrating stories. Mere time mein ye naya kanun laya, mere mein ye laya. We'll take pride in saying that we did away with 2,000 rules which had gone obsolete with the passage of time. And these precisely, we did not bring in regulations, we rather deregulated what was already existing. Because that is what was causing the delays. What was also disincentivizing the investors from outside to coming to this place, in spite of our huge research. So that was the second. Third, of course, we had, fortunately enough, the head of the state, the Prime Minister, who has the unusual capacity to break the taboos of the past, which usually the political leaders avoid, because it's comfortable living in status quo and letting things sail through election after election. But here we had a Prime Minister. He said, what is required, what is in the interest of the people of this country, we'll do. Wherever we are required, we'll reach. What has been left undone, we'll do, and then leave it to the people to decide and to their discretion. So we had that kind of liberty. That's why I say this is possibly one of the best times happening in India for the innovators, for the youngsters, for also the startups. And all this together has created an ecosystem. The rise in economy, I think, because I'm just giving you a kind of a small abstract of a larger research paper which could happen. You have abolished the regulations which were hindering you. You have started exploring which you had not explored. And you have also moved on to see what are the global parameters, trying to live up to them. Gone are the days when India was waiting for others to give us a lead. Today, others are waiting for us to give them a lead. And that is what has given our youth a sense of esteem. It's not an ordinary thing that during the G20, it is or even before that, when the Prime Minister Modi visited DC, Washington, DC, it was the American president who offered that we want to have Indian astronauts accompanying our team to the International Space Station, which means they realize the kind of value addition which our countrymen could do. Today, if we are at the South Pole of the moon, it is they who are waiting for us to send them the inputs. So it's just the other way around. So we have proved ourselves on the international parameters, the international scale. Okay, we are no longer only confined to our domains, which of course we have also started exploring, which were not, but we can also excel in the domains which you thought were yours. And this has also thirdly been possible because we have very consciously, under Prime Minister Modi, done away with the cynicism of the past, the misgivings of the past. There's a huge amount of integration between the public and the private sector. I know what was the sessions earlier, but I was being briefed. And I think this has been possible because there's so much of skepticism between the two. The public sector thought that the private sector, all thieves. The private sector thought, the public sector, all bribe takers. But I was telling the other day, I said if we have to move in the same bus, the bribe takers also have to sit in the same bus, the thieves also. You can't move away to reach the destination. If the destination is common, we have to learn to integrate. And the larger the integration, the extended the integration. So I think time has come to do away with the demarcation between the private and the public. And the age of silos is over. That is the lesson which we have started learning, which we made others also realize. I mean, the success story of space is one of the most brilliant, brightest evidences of say. The first startup, private startup, who was the first one, Skyroot, the first one to launch a private rocket, within 2 years have turned into entrepreneurs. They started manufacturing. First Indian rocket unit has been set up by them in Hyderabad. So much of potential happens when you integrate it. And it is this year. And as I said, this is also why, if we are being hailed, if we are looked up by the rest of the world, which otherwise thought they were developed, we were underdeveloping, it's not that they are impressed by me, by you. It's because they realize the prowess, the kind of new potential that has suddenly become unrobed or unveiled by India. And that's also because we are now moving in the same pace, or maybe in certain areas higher. And as I said, I've been taught as a student of science not to talk without evidence. If you just take one example of television. Television happened in USA in the 1950s. The famous election of 1960 in which John Kennedy defeated Richard Nixon. The turning point, the deciding factor was a TV debate between the two candidates. And here in India at that time, we didn't know what is TV, what is debate. In India, it started happening only in somewhere around 1970. So we were 1 decade, 1.5 decades behind them. Same is the case with computers. But today, take the example of quantum technology. We are among the 5 or 6 nations in the world who are actually experimenting in quantum technology. The application has not happened anywhere, but we are at equal pace in the R&D. And that's why our startups today are not only gaining esteem within India, but even outside. The other day we were in Berlin, I was told, because I like to meet the youngsters wherever I go, because that's how you learn from them. I asked them, why do you prefer boys and girls from India for your startup group? So they cited a number of reasons, the last one being that they don't take a weekend off, as our boys and girls do. So our boys and girls disappear on Friday morning, afternoon, and reappear only on Monday morning. But we have learned to slog. So that's an added trait with which we were born. We want to struggle and slog, in addition to everything else. And then, as I said, the whole ecosystem, because I won't, otherwise I can go on and on. The whole ecosystem also involves the new education policy, which has supplemented, each of these transformatory changes have supplemented each other. It has supplemented our innovators, our startup endeavors. The national education policy, which allows you to exit and enter again. So the other day, because I visit almost 1 or 2 universities every week, so the other day some of the students asked me, what is the difference in a single sentence with the earlier one? I said, the earlier one made you, or made us, the generation which went through this, the prisoners of our aspiration. Whereas the new one gives you aspirations in abundance and leaves you with the dilemma of choosing the outlet. And to put it in simple words, I'll tell you, suppose your parents wanted you to become a doctor, and in class you take those bio subjects, then you don't make it. And what happens? You are stuck with that. Your subjects chase you. You have stopped chasing the career of a medico, of a doctor, but the subject doesn't leave you. And then you go on to do a BSc in the same subjects. Then try to your luck in civil service. If you make it good, if you don't, then you go in for a post-graduation, MSc, in the same subjects, either botany or zoology. If you are able to make it, then you look for some good job, some maybe UGC teacher or professor or whatever. If you don't, then you go in for a PhD. And you end up as an unemployed PhD. But here I have the opportunity. After class 12, if I'm not able to move in the direction that I had planned for myself, for my parents, I can juggle these subjects. I can combine biology with economics. I can combine economics with physics. And this is the kind of pattern which is being followed in many of the other developed universities, and that's how they have moved on. So we have now started following that. And that also, because that gives me an opportunity to realize my aptitudes, because maybe in class 12 I didn't realize what I was meant for. My parents did that for me. But when I realize, I go. Like most of us, when you go to Bollywood, you go in the search of becoming an actor because you think you're very good looking. But some of us end up becoming script writers, some of also clapper boys. So what you actually know the best also comes through realization in the course of time. And what you don't also comes through. This education policy gives. And that has created an ecosystem. And that's why I said, you are no longer a prisoner of the aspiration. That's one of the best times happening for the youth of this country. And sometimes I feel I missed out this age because this is one of the... And when you move on in the next 20 years to see the Festival of Century India in 2047, it is these youth who are going to be hailed across the world. So I think I'm getting into too much of a monologue. I would rather have preferred if there was something coming from the other side, and I would have rather responded accordingly. But I personally feel that if we are able to channelize ourselves and make the best use of the milieu available, it will be to our advantage if we are not. And I think what is equally important is the creation of awareness, not only among youth, but also among their elders, among their parents. We had an expo recently, Startup Expo here in Pragati Maidan. I said, next time when you have this, make it mandatory. When you have a conducted visit by a school or a college, every student should be accompanied with at least one parent. Because what you counsel is uncounseled by the parent. When the child goes, वो कहता है उसने तो अपना बना लिया, तुम्हारा वक्त बर्बाद कर रहा. So, because they have their deconditioning is to be done. You have to make them unlearn to learn what is happening now. Because India is, and the pace has gone up very fast. Not only we are changing, we are transforming, but the pace of transformation is, what you envisage or visualize for next morning would have happened in the middle of night. Like when that Chandrayaan was moving, and my first sensitive moment was when I was waiting for it to move out of the Earth orbit and get into the lunar orbit, because that's the most critical moment, because it was moving through the force of gravity. So if you lose it out, then it falls. It's just like you change the track in a national highway, and if you miss the track, you crash with the other car. So I was waiting till about 12 o'clock, or a little before 12, and I thought it would happen in the morning. So I went out to sleep and realized in the morning that it actually happened in the midnight. So it's important equally also to keep the pace with us. And secondly, before I conclude, I think what I envy the most is when I find many of our youth not making the best use of this tool available. All the preparatory material, the information is available in this. Gone are the days, if I had to write a thesis, my guide would say, go to British Council Library and you find a book. I would go to British Council Library, they would say, yes, we have the book, we have sent it to the consulate in Calcutta. So where do I go? Here you have everything. I came across a girl, class 12, who had just now cracked her IIT, because that's what I like doing the best, trying to interview these children. So she had come from a terror-struck area of a district called Sopur in Kashmir. I said, you live in a place where there's no coaching, you can't move out with cross-firing happening. How did you make it? She takes out this from her pocket with confidence, tells me, sir, 18 hours, 8 months, IIT crack. I said, I wish somebody had told me when I was your age. So that's why I'm saying it sometimes hurts if we are not able to. I told, in fact, I'm quite free with my youngsters and my Yuva Morcha. I told one of the boys, I was so, worked up. I said, I see you changing your, what is that called, profile?
Yeah, profile picture.
Profile picture, so many times. And I wonder whether it is seen even for the one whom you change for. So please learn to make so we are able to learn, because we are two sets of people in this society. One is who don't know. The other is who don't know that they don't know. So I think that is the second is the worst plight. If you are able to make them to know where they can actually look for, I think this is one of the best times happening for India. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Please do continue with your presence here on stage.